For those who are new, welcome. For those who have been here already, thanks for staying. Now, let's dive into today's topic. The original Star Wars Battlefront games. From the late 1990s to about 2010 was a golden era of Star Wars gaming. These two games were released right at the height of that in 2004 and in 2005 respectively. Star Wars games were in full abundance at this time, from PC gaming to Nintendo 64 into the GameCube, Xbox, PlayStation, and the Sega Dreamcast era of games. All the way through to the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Nintendo Wii era of gaming. Focusing on the original two Battlefront games in this video, let's ask a question. What made these two games so good that we still talk about them over 20 years after they launched? Starting with the first game, the gameplay was simple and straightforward. There were 3 game modes in this game: Instant Action, Galactic Conquest, and a campaign. With the campaign mode, you had the Clone Wars, or you had the Galactic Civil War. All these game modes ultimately were a conquest game mode, just framed differently. If you just wanted to jump in and play on a map, you went to Instant Action, where you could make a full playlist of the different maps. You would select the era you wanted to play as, and you could just jump right in. If you wanted something a little more complex, you had Galactic Conquest, where it was you versus the AI, or online play you against a real player. You pick your era, you pick your faction, and you started out with one planet, and you could slowly battle your way across 8 other planets. Each planet you won would give you a unit bonus that you could use in combat, whether it was reinforcements, regenerating your health, or a few other options. And the goal was to gain all the planets and finally take out your opponent's home base planet. After that, you win Galactic Conquest. Very simple, very straightforward, but a lot of fun. So again, the third option for gameplay was to do the campaigns, either the Clone Wars or the Galactic Civil War. Each campaign tried to tell the story of whichever era you're playing through, and for the time, it was a decent bit of fun, I have to admit. Even though I did find most of my time, I would do Galactic Conquest, because that just made the game feel that much more interesting. So a year after the first Star Wars Battlefront came out, Star Wars Battlefront 2 would come out. This time, we are talking after Revenge of the Sith came out, which was the final in the original Star Wars saga. Again, you had your campaign, you had Galactic Conquest, and you had Instant Action. The campaign this time focused on the 501st Legion of the Clone Army of the Republic that then became Vader's Fist, the elite stormtroopers of the Empire during the Galactic Civil War. It's curious that they decided to have a campaign all about the 501st Legion. Given that the 501st Legion started out as a Star Wars fan club of screen-accurate costumers who have gone on to become an internationally known group. It's a non-profit organization, officially recognized by Disney, officially recognized by Lucasfilm, to the degree that their Legion became part of Star Wars canon. So it's very interesting to me that we get to play a campaign based on the 501st Legion in this video game. Moving on to Galactic Conquest, it got a massive upgrade in this game. While yes, you're still battling your way across a handful of really good maps, many of them coming from the new Revenge of the Sith movie, it was more of a galaxy-wide battle that you're doing, as you did battle across a virtual galaxy map, where you actually had to move your command ship in order to engage with a specific planet. So let me tell you here that in this game, they introduced space combat. Ship-to-ship space combat. So if your command ship met an enemy command ship, there would most likely be a space battle before a land battle. Another way this game mode changed is after each battle won, you would win credits. These credits would be used to buy specialty units, the unit bonuses from the prior game, as well as more command ships to use on the galaxy-wide map. This really made Galactic Conquest feel like a war game, or, for simple terms, a game of chess. You had to be careful with how you spent the credits that you gained, so that you could plan out how you wanted to take on the different maps and know exactly what you wanted for specific maps. Moving on to Instant Action, as it got upgraded as well. Rather than just playing Conquest mode on the different maps in the different eras, they added Capture the Flag, and if you know anything about Capture the Flag, pretty self-explanatory there. They then added Assault mode, which is basically a heroes versus villains gameplay mode. Then on select maps, there was a Hunt mode, where you play as either the invaders or the indigenous species of the planet, and you're just trying to take out as many of your opponents as you can in a specified time frame. So there were two other modes of play introduced in this game, and there were two sets of tutorial missions. Each one was designed to teach you either how to play land-based combat or space-based combat. So that's how we've broken down the two games into what you're able to do in each one, how the gameplay works, what the gameplay loops are, and again we still have the question in the back of our mind, what made these games so good that we're still talking about them all these years later? At this point in 2026, we're talking over 20 years after even Battlefront 2 came out. So what did make these games so good? Comparing the two games side by side, starting with the map selection, Battlefront 1 had mostly ground-based maps. Yes, there are some with vehicles that you could fly around on, but for the most part, you're on a ground-based map. There were two maps usually per planet, except for era-specific maps like Hoth or Camino or Geonosis. Battlefront 2 had a handful more maps, along with space maps, which were mostly the same, just different backgrounds and different command ships and different player vehicles. But for the most part, it was the same setup, so they could have more of those. Battlefront 1 had, again, a handful of those iconic era-specific maps, alongside a bunch of other general maps that could be played for both eras. Battlefront 2, same idea, but with Clone Wars-inspired maps from Revenge of the Sith. But again, some of the maps were era-specific locked. Some of the maps from the original game did not make it into the second game, and instead were replaced. Was this a good thing, or was this a bad thing? I'll let you decide. A small change were some of the units and weapons in Battlefront 2 were changed from Battlefront 1. For instance, the Super Battle Droid Wrist Rocket got changed from Battlefront 1 to Battlefront 2, and that's probably the most noticeable difference there. As far as unit changes go, we got a couple new units in Battlefront 2, and for every unit but the Droideka, you could now only crouch versus going fully prone, laying down to do, say, sniping, for example. So they reworked how features worked in the second game. Hero and villain characters. In the original game, you could call upon them in Galactic Conquest if you had that perk available, but you could not play as them. In Battlefront 2, you could play as the heroes and villains. After all, there's a whole heroes versus villains game mode. The first game only had a handful of heroes. I think it was one per era for heroes and villains, so a total of 4 characters. In Battlefront 2, we had a whole range of characters for heroes and villains. Everyone from Luke to Vader, Count Dooku to Yoda, Boba Fett and Jango Fett, Han Solo and the Emperor. There are a good few more that I could name, but that's just giving you a good sample of what we had to work with. Now then, were all of them able to play on all the maps for their specific era? No. There's only one hero and one villain that was eligible per map. How the developers decided what map got which hero and villain? I have no idea. I'd be very curious about that, because I would have loved to have Clone Wars era maps have characters like Count Dooku or Palpatine against, say, Yoda or Obi-Wan. But no, you could only pick the one that they selected. You could not just select from the range of era-specific heroes / villains. So now then, we're talking these games were out before the Xbox 360 / PS3 era of gaming. So we're talking, for me, I played these on the original Xbox. At the time, I did not have Xbox Live, and therefore I did not know there was a DLC pack or anything for these games. However, Battlefront 1 got a DLC map added to the game, and that was Jabba's Palace. The second Battlefront got a DLC character pack and a map pack. The characters were Kit Fisto for the heroes and Asajj Ventress for the villains. The map pack added in 4 maps. These were the 2 Rinvar maps from the original game, the Yavin Arena map from the original game, and the Bespin Cloud City map from the original game. As well as they added Assault Mode, or Heroes vs. Villains, to the Kashyyyk map. On the versions of these games that are on the Xbox Marketplace today, you're able to play these games with all content added in. So, some final thoughts about these games. Still with that question in the back of my mind, as I hope it's in the back of your mind. Again, back when these games came out, I did not have Xbox Live. I never played them online with other players. I did, however, have local split screen ability with my friends and my brother. This was a really nice way to bond with my brother, and it meant a lot to me then, and looking back on it now as I'm working on this video, it still means so much to me that he spent some time to play these two games with me. We had very different hobbies back then and still today, and this was just a way for us to have some good brotherly bonding time that, without getting too far into the weeds, it means so much to me that we did that back then. Yeah, those games really, as more than just a Star Wars fan, but as a gamer, as a person, it really brought my brother and myself together in a fun, unique way that not a lot did at that time in our lives. Some years back, I discovered the YouTube channel and Facebook page for the YouTube Star Wars content creator, Star Wars HQ. I watched him for quite some time and I still watch his content, but I remember early on when I was watching him, he mentioned how he and his twin brother got into Star Wars through these games. That the movies hadn't pulled them in, but it was these games, and then they became lifelong Star Wars fans, watched the movies, enjoyed them, and they're still big into Star Wars to this day. I can only imagine, based on that and my own experience, how impactful these games were for so many Star Wars fans at that time, and I can only imagine how meaningful these games were for those who were already huge Star Wars fans. For a good few years after these titles came out, I kept wishing they would make a third game in the series, and I had all these ideas about what they could do, how they could change things, what they could add to them, the whole 9 yards. But a proper third title never did happen. It wouldn't be until Disney bought Lucasfilm that EA Games would release a new Battlefront in 2015. However, we'll talk about that game and its successor in another video. I'll also say this. The PC modding community kept these original two Battlefront games alive for quite some time, and I believe there are still servers active today, and that the modding community for these games has only grown tenfold. That when Aspyr, who also did the port for the Episode 1 Racer game that we looked at 2 weeks ago, also did a remaster for these two games. When that remaster came out, people compared it to the latest version of the modded servers in game, and the modded version still looked somehow better than what Aspyr did. I have not played any of the mods because I only have this on Xbox, not on PC, but I've seen video of them, and I will say this, the mods for these two games today look fantastic. The Aspyr remaster, though, while it looks good, from what I have seen from reliable content creators and their videos about the remaster, the online servers are not what they should be, and people have questioned Aspyr's ability to handle the remaster. Not having been hands-on with it myself yet, I'm questioning whether I should or not. However, I have heard other good things about other Aspyr Star Wars ports and remasters. So I might check those out first. Given these games and how I'm playing them on the Xbox today, how they have not changed that much in over 20 years now. Back then, I would have probably given them a 9, maybe a 10. Today, I will give them a solid 9.5 out of 10. No game for me today is perfect. No game I think will ever be perfect. So I will probably never give any game a perfect 10 out of 10. So a 9.5 is an extremely high score for me to give a game, or even two games, that came out even 20 years ago. Back then, games and gaming was simpler. Expectations back then for games like this were not what they are today. If another studio decided to take a crack at Star Wars Battlefront today, or sometime in the near future, I hope it's an independent studio who doesn't have a corporate backing dictating the creative freedoms they should take to bring their vision of these games to life. We need a team that will continue the legacy of Star Wars Battlefront to continue to make Battlefront feel timeless, just as these original two Star Wars Battlefronts still feel, in my honest opinion. Until next time, roll those dice, move that bishop, and collect 200 after passing go.